We're going to proceed with further cross-examination. Mr. Bradsher.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Ms. Blitzer, when you made the transition of employment from your husband's office to 9A, do you recall coming in and signing paperwork for that transfer?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I don't recall if we came into the office and signed it.
All right. Do you recall, you've described the Caswell County office, do you recall the other employees that were in the Caswell County office in District 9A?
I know there were 4, well, including me, there were 4 that
Okay.
I knew of.
And if you could tell the jury who you recall were in that Caswell office.
Mr. Stoltz. I only know the other attorney by Hugh. I don't know his last name.
Okay.
Miss Holbrook.
All right. Anybody else that you recall?
No one else that I recall.
All right. And you've described the office as you had a desk and a phone, but not a separate computer. Is that right?
That's correct.
Do you recall the DA's office in Caswell having a bottom floor and an upstairs office adjacent to the courtroom?
I do.
And in the office upstairs adjacent to the courtroom, was there also a computer and office?
It was a little office. I don't remember what was there. I don't recall exactly what was in that office.
It is true that at the time of the transfer, January 13th, 2015, Jay Stoltz was the Caswell County chief. Is that right?
He was the chief as I knew it.
Okay, so he was the ADA in charge of that county as you understood it. Is that right?
Right.
And do you recall going to the Person County office of District 9A?
I never went to the Person County office.
All right. You recall going to a staff meeting at the Person County office?
No, sir. I went to a staff meeting at the Caswell County office.
So to your recollection, you never went to the Person County office?
No, sir.
Did you ever meet Gail Peed, the AA for 9A?
At a Christmas or some gathering called a bourbon and steak or something like that that office had.
So you don't recall meeting her at any other staff meeting at work?
She may have been at the staff meeting at the Caswell County office as well, but I don't recall if that was, I remember going to her home, but I don't remember if she could have been at that meeting.
All right. And in terms of working with Hugh Williford in the Caswell office, did you go to court or work with Hugh Williford?
I don't remember working with Hugh.
Okay. Do you recall working with Jay?
I recall going to court with Jay, yes.
All right. You recall working with Debbie Holbrook?
Debbie was in charge of like the phone area, and she didn't give me work to do, but she would answer questions if I had some.
And in terms of the setup, because you said you only had a desk and a phone, is that correct?
That's correct.
It's an open office area, is that right?
Well, Ms. Holbrook had a desk in the center of the little office, yes, in the open area.
And there was a reception area with the big bar, is that right?
There was a bar and then some seats outside, yes.
And beyond that were 2 desks. Ms. Holbrook had the big desk with the computer, is that right?
Correct.
There were also 2 other adjacent offices to the left, weren't they?
I know that Jay had an office on the left. I don't know which, there was another office to my right, but the door was always closed.
Right. And do you recall mentioning in one of your statements that there was another office offered, but it was hot and stuffy and...
There was an office they said that I could use. It was someone else's office. I don't recall whose it was. I remember that day that Ms. Holbrook, that they said, you could go in there and use that office if you want to. Ms. Holbrook had no shoes on because the sweat was going down to her feet, and I remember I was soaking wet with sweat that day, and then they said, well, that office is about 10 degrees hotter than where you're standing right now.
And you mentioned on direct that you did do conflict cases between Rockingham and Caswell, is that right?
I did Rockingham County conflict cases, like if there was a case in Rockingham County that there was a conflict. Those were the ones that I did. My understanding was what I had to do.
All right, and as a part of being over in Rockingham, helping with those cases, do you recall needing DAS access and requests being made so that you could access a computer in Rockingham?
I recall being signed up for or trying to get signed up for a computer program to learn how to do something on the computer. And when I went to get into the class, they told me, because I was told and I don't recall who exactly told me, if it was Jay or Miss Pete or whoever it was, I don't even remember. But they said, this is the date that you need to log in to access the class. And when I did, they said, you're not signed up for this class. You can't take it.
Madam Clerk, what's my next in number? Thank you. Now, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Ms. Blitzer, Mandy was marked as Appendix Exhibit 14. Take a look at that for just a second.
Okay.
Did you have a state email address when you started with Mr. Blitzer's office?
I probably did. I don't know what it was, though.
And then after January 13th, when you went to 9A, did you have an email address as well?
I assume I did.
All right. And looking at Defendants 14, do you recognize your email address and an email that you would have sent to Melinda Richardson?
If it says I sent it to her, it says to Cindy Blitzer from
Objection.
Melinda.
Sustain.
I'll try again. Do you recognize Defendants 14 as an email where you are in the chain as Cindy Blitzer, your state email address?
I see Cindy Blitzer. I don't see where the email address is.
All right.
Maybe I'm just not looking, but I see Cindy Blitzer. I don't see the email address.
Okay. Did you say it was from Cindy Blitzer to Melinda Richardson?
I saw Cindy Blitzer. If you'll let me see again, I'll
Okay.
see if it's from.
May I approach again?
Yes.
It says from Cindy Blitzer to Melinda Richardson, but I still don't see I don't see an email address
Okay.
on there.
Well, having looked at Defendants 14, do you recognize that as an email from you to Melinda Richardson?
I don't recall. I mean, it says it's from me, but I don't recall the email.
All right. Would that be true for all of the emails taken from your computer done during the time of your employment with 9A?
I can't say if it's true or not. I don't know what emails we're talking about or anything.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you recall asking Melinda Richardson to set up DAS for you on February 27th once you became an employee of 9A?
Can you refresh my memory as to what DAS is?
Okay. You don't recall what DAS is that right?
I don't recall what DAS is now.
Okay. Did you handle conflict cases?
I did.
All right. And when you reviewed Defendants Exhibit 14, did that refresh your memory at all about handling conflict cases?
I don't know what that email has to do with the conflict cases. I'm sorry. I don't.
All right. Well, let's start with which conflict cases do you recall?
Mr. Shockley's.
Okay, Shockley, that was the murder case.
Correct.
Do you recall other conflict cases?
I don't recall what they were. There were two little small ones, but I don't recall what those were.
Do you recall routinely working with Jay Stoltz?
On the Shockley case?
Let's start with January of 2015. You say that you were going to the Caswell office, is that right?
I don't know the exact date that I went to there.
Was Mr. Stoltz your supervisor in Caswell County?
Mr. Stoltz was the person that I reported to, yes.
Okay. Glad you said that word, because on direct, you indicated that you reported to Wallace Bradsher.
I reported to Mr. Stoltz when I went to work there because I had to do what he told me to do in court.
Okay. So to clarify, during the course of your employment, you did not report directly to me, is that correct?
I never said that. When I was in court with Mr. Stoltz, you were not there, so I had to, he was higher than me, and he told me what to do, so he was the one that, maybe I'm using the wrong word, report, but he was the one that I answered to.
Okay. Do you recall reporting to me during your employment in District 9A?
Yes, you were the ultimate authority as far as I was concerned with my employment.
I understand. Mr. Blitzer again told you that? Is that right?
As far as who I reported to?
Right.
My understanding was that I reported to you. As I said before in an earlier statement, there was points when I had no idea who I was answering to. I was switched from one person to another. I didn't even know. But I knew ultimately you were the answering authority.
Okay. Let me take it one more question there, see if I can clarify. In terms of physically coming and reporting to me and getting job duties, did you do that while you're employed in 9A?
No, because I didn't go to Person County to ask you for my job duties. Everything was in Rockingham County that I did.
All right. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
I'm handing what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 15. Could you take a moment and look it up?
Okay.
Do you recall routinely engaging with Mr. Stoltz about your work issues?
No.
You don't? Okay. Do you recall this email with regards to working on the Shockley case?
Mr. Stoltz met with me one time on the Shockley case in the office when I went to Caswell and asked me how things were going. That's all I recall about meeting with Mr. Stoltz. I didn't sit down with him on several occasions. No, I did not, and meet with him.
So is Defendant's Exhibit 15 an email from you or to you?
This states that it is from Mr. Stoltz to me.
Okay. And do you see your name in this state email?
I see to Blitzer, Cindy L.
All right. And do you see a response from you?
I released my time in Beacon for the month of June.
And that was a response to Mr. Stoltz.
Mr. Stoltz, I don't know. Mr. Stoltz starts out, great, I need to spend some uninterrupted time with you on Shockley.
Okay, and what was the date of that email?
June the 29th,
All right. Of what year?
2015.
So you don't recall getting emails from Mr. Stoltz regarding the Shockley case?
I don't.
And specifically, at the end of June 2015, you don't recall Mr. Stoltz asking for time to meet to go over the Shockley case?
As I said, we met the one time at the Caswell County when he asked me how things were going on it.
All right. And did you recall responding and saying that you had released your time in Beacon?
I don't recall. I mean, I'm not saying that I didn't type that. I'm just saying I don't, if you're asking me, I recall doing it. No, I don't recall when I did it or why I sent it to him. No.
May I approach the clerk, Your Honor?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 6. And he must have marked it State's Exhibit 6. It's been introduced as evidence as the entry of beacon hours for you.
Okay.
You take a moment to look at that.
I mean, I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at, but okay.
Okay. Do you see the first entry of beacon for you on the first page of the State's Exhibit?
9/5/2016.
9/5/2016? Okay. Let me ask you it this way. While you were initially with the 9A office, did you enter your beacon in February, March, April of 2015?
When in 2015, there could have been times when I asked Melinda to. There absolutely could have been.
All right. So did you ever enter your own beacon?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And then do you recall about what month you believe you stopped coming to Caswell and started working primarily at the office in Rockingham?
I don't recall the month. I do not.
Do you recall a work order being put in place in April of 2015 to do some moving around of your office in Rockingham?
No, I don't even know what a work order is.
So if you were not coming to Caswell, then you would be reporting to Rockingham or working from home. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And in terms of communication from somebody from 9A, it would be with Jay Stoltz. Is that correct?
If I were to speak with someone from 9A,
Yes.
I don't know who I would have spoken to from 9A. I guess it would. I guess I would have talked to Jay some. Yes.
All right. Do you recall a sexual assault case, conflict case with Rockingham County that Mr. Stoltz agreed to handle?
I don't recall.
Do you remember a drug case that Mr. Stoltz was handling?
I don't.
And do you recall multiple emails to Mr. Stoltz with regards to beacon time? We'll start with that.
I may have told Mr. Stoltz that I released my time. I think he had told me at one point that I was supposed to let somebody know if I released it, so I think I let him know that I'd released my time.
And how about CJ Leeds training? You recall?
I
Cars-
don't recall if that was the training that I thought. I don't know what type of training it was that I was supposed to be signed up for and never got into the class because no one put me in there.
All right. It's fair to say that by early 2016, you were primarily working on Shockley. Is that right?
By early 2016, I was working on Shockley when I started.
Right. But you were primarily working on that in January of 2016. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So the courses that you were taking, you were doing some of it during work time and some of it not at work. Is that right? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. But when you were at the Rockingham County office, you were also available for work, weren't you?
Not from the Rockingham County office.
All right. Wanted to talk to you about that. Now, you worked for the North Carolina Department of Revenue when?
I don't remember the years that I worked for them. I don't recall the exact years. I know that I left in 97,
All right. And you worked for them for 2 years, is that right?
probably about that time.
Okay. And what did you do for the North Carolina Department of Revenue?
I was a revenue officer.
And so what would the general duties be?
I collected taxes from people.
All right. Was that, what was your timekeeping system? Was Beacon in effect?
No, I didn't know what Beacon was until I came to the courthouse.
So you were a salaried employee?
That's correct.
All right. And then you described to the jury on direct that you worked with your husband in private practice. Is that right?
Correct.
In fact, in your statements, you indicated you did discovery, you went to court, you assisted with clients, you ran errands, you did just about everything in a private practice. Is that right?
That's correct.
And is it true that when you started with the Rockingham County office, part of your duties was going to be doing discovery, going to court, doing the same type of prep work that you did in private practice?
They had not decided I was just going to work on cases. I was not his administrative assistant, and I was not going to work on anything in particular. They didn't tell me what I was going to do exactly.
Okay. And so you were there the first couple of weeks and hadn't figured out, nobody had told you exactly what you were going to do?
No, I was still trying to figure out how to work your system with the state. I had not been on, I guess, whatever that DAS, I don't even recall what that was, but I had not worked on the state
All right.
system, so they were trying to teach me how to do that.
And then as you started working with the Caswell office and with Jay, you were assisting some in court, handling conflict cases, but eventually, pretty quickly, you prefer being in the Rockingham office, isn't that right? Because it has air conditioning, desk, computer, et cetera.
And it was closer to home.
And you were set up on the system so that you could access the computer with your state email, et cetera? Is that correct?
I could access the computer system, only certain things. I was not trained in that one class that, I don't recall if it was CJ Lee, I don't know what class it was, but you had to be trained in it before you could actually work on the computer with it.
All right, and so in terms of your job duties, or to the extent that you would be doing work for Rockingham County, no one ever said that to you? That you would be doing overflow work for Rockingham County
No.
at all?
When I was employed with your office, Mr. Bradsher?
Well, yes, during that time frame, all through 2016.
No, I was not told that I was going to do overflow cases with Rockingham. As a matter of fact, I was told I was not to touch Rockingham County cases because I worked for your district, only if they were conflict cases.
And again, if you could tell the jury, who told you that?
That was my understanding through Mr. Blitzer, through you, that I was going to work conflict cases for Rockingham County, if there were conflict cases for Rockingham County, that's what I did. I did not do Rockingham County cases.
So Mr. Blitzer told you that when you were at the Rockingham office, you were only going to do the Shockley case and conflict cases. He said nothing to you about overflow work in Rockingham County or special projects. Is that correct?
That's correct. And as a matter of fact, when I was at the Rockingham County office and I was doing my case on Shockley, I would close my door, and there may have been pleasantries exchanged with the other people, but then I closed my door and I listened to videos.
Is your cell phone number 336-209-1061?
Yes.
All right. And in early 2016, January, you recall being in a text exchange with Spencer Morrow?
Yes, that was when he was doing my placement test, because we were going to call each other and do the placement test together, and my mother had a heart attack. I recall that, yes.
Okay. And this was the placement test into what?
Into whatever math class I decided to go into, just to make sure I could do math and calculations.
So if in January of 2016 you were doing a placement test, does that mean the placement was to get into another course that you needed to take as a prerequisite?
It was a placement test to see which class I could take, whatever I chose to take, but which class was able to take.
And for clarification, would that be a class to take prior to the nursing school that you told the jury about, or in nursing school?
No, no class was ever assisted with me in nursing school. It was prior to, it wasn't even a prerequisite to the nursing school that I applied to. It was a prerequisite to a prerequisite class.
Okay, let me ask you this. The prerequisite course or test that Mr. Morrow helped you with was to help you get into what?
Just a basic math class.
Okay? May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Ms. Blitzer, I already asked about, but you didn't tell me about being in nursing school. I want to clear up. Did you ever tell anybody in my office from March of 2016 through the last day of employment with the office that you were in a BSN nursing program?
I never spoke with anyone in your office.
All right. All right, I may have still first.
Yes, sir.
Henny was marked in September, I'm sorry, Defendant's Exhibit 16. You can take a moment and just look through that.
Mr. Bradsher.
Yes.
This is the text that he and I were talking about.
Okay. Do you recognize your cell phone number on one of those pages? And can you authenticate that this is a conversation between you and Mr. Morrow by text?
I do not see my cell phone number on this page, no.
Do you mind if I add that to it? Well, got something else on the back. I was going to add a page, but I do need to redact it before it's published.
All right.
Along with that text, to review this as part of, and this is Exhibit 16.
That's my mobile number.
All right. So you recall this text exchange between you
I
and
do.
Mr. Morrow?
It was the Sunday that my mother had her heart attack and we were supposed to Skype to do the placement.
Okay, and it begins January 24th, 2016, is that right?
The date is January 24th, 2016.
Okay. Move Defendant 16 into evidence, Your Honor.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll retrieve it.
All right.
Isn't it true that on January 24th, 2016, you texted Mr. Morrow that, hey, since we have no work tomorrow, is there any way we can get together for that stupid test?
The stupid test, yeah, that I did say that.
All right. And did you go on to say my mom had a heart attack yesterday and she is at Cone?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you say they will be doing a heart cath and stent tomorrow, so I need to make sure I'm at the hospital that's done?
Correct?
And isn't it true that you said, I'll be with her tomorrow except when I have to take the test? Do you recall saying that?
I do.
And just let me know what you think. They will not postpone the test for any reason. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then there is a response. And then isn't it true that you said to him, hey, Spence, just sent you a copy of the practice exam along with a website for additional help? You recall doing that?
Correct. We both did it.
And is it true that you said attached in the email to your Gmail account, please let me know if you got it. Many, many thanks, Cindy. Is that correct? All right, then on January 24th, 2016, after he responds, did you say to him, no, you're not going to take any chances with your safety? There's no set time. I just have to take it by midnight tomorrow?
I guess. I don't recall.
You recall saying, you think I could have you on telephone standby when I take it? I think that would work just as well. You recall that?
I probably did, yeah.
Okay. And then he gives you a response. Is that correct?
I don't know. I'm not looking. I don't know.
Okay. Do you recall saying, oh, great, okay, you just tell me how to do the Skype thing and Craig will make it happen?
Yes, because I didn't know how to work Skype.
All right. And did you say, I know how to Skype, just not sure how to do it showing the computer screen?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, I assume I did type the text. I don't know that I know how to Skype today
All
without
right.
help.
You recall on January 25th, 2016 at 10:07 a.m. saying, hey, Spence, my mom is having her heart procedure in just a few. We'll be at the hospital with her most of the day. Do you think you could Skype with me around 6 tonight? I think they gave us 3 hours. I have until midnight, so if you need to do it a little later, that's fine.
Correct.
All right. And then he gives you a response, doesn't he? Talking about the test?
Objection.
I don't know.
Overruled as to whether he responded, as to what the response is, it would be sustained.
Do you recall having knowledge that Mr. Morrow had a friend who was an engineer?
I don't recall if he did or not. I don't know.
Who really knew algebra?
I don't recall if he does or did not.
And then, isn't it true that you say, wow, Spence, that's awesome. Please feel free to exclude me. I'm sure you're much better than me. We will touch base around 6, and I'll tell you how to log in, and I'll just be on standby since I've been studying a bit, but I'm sure you still know. You recall what you said?
I don't recall what I said. I'm not denying that I typed those texts, but I don't recall what I said, no.
You do recall that he actually took the test, don't you?
That was the placement test that I spoke about earlier. And I said that Mr. Morrow helped me with a placement test, not a final exam.
And you've reviewed these texts, and it does refresh your memory that he actually took the whole thing, and you found out you made 100, right?
You either passed or failed the placement test. You either knew how to do calculations or you didn't.
May I approach the witness again?
Yes.
Perhaps I'll refresh your memory. And he was with Marcus, defendant 16.
100. I had no idea, my friend.
Objection.
I didn't ask to read.
Correct. Sustained.
So just to clarify, does this refresh your recollection that on that placement test, that you actually didn't take any of it and you made 100 because Spencer Morrow did it for you?
I stated earlier that Spencer Morrow assisted me with that placement exam and that he helped me take it. Yes, I absolutely.
And then the placement test was to do what?
To get into a math class.
And did you go into that math class?
I did go into a math class.
And when did that happen?
I don't know the exact dates. I don't recall.
Early February 2016?
January, February. I don't recall the dates.
Because these texts we've gone through around January 25th, 2016. You get the 100, and then you go to another course. Is that right?
No, you were able to apply for a math class at that point.
And did you?
As I just said, yes, I did.
And when did you start that math class?
I don't recall. It could have been February. I don't recall exact dates.
And this is an online class, right? You can take it at night if you need to.
Yes.
Okay. In that math class that you just referred to, did you get assistance from anybody in the DA's office to help you with that class?
That was the class that I referred to earlier, that if I had questions, I asked for assistance, yes.
All right. And you asked for assistance from who?
Mr. Morrow and Mr. Ambrose.
All right. So Mr. Morrow helped you with the placement test and then the math class.
If I needed his help.
During the fall of October 2016, when the SBI was doing interviews in Rockingham County, did Mr. Blitzer tell you of any concerns about Mr. Morrow being interviewed?
No.
Okay. Mr. Blitzer, did he tell you that he told his second in command to tell Mr. Morrow he better keep his effing mouth shut?
No.
Did he share with you any other concerns of Kyle Ambrose of being interviewed about the course he assisted you with?
No.
So during this time frame of October of 2016, that was not a consideration of yours that there was any problem with having these employees do this class. Is that right?
They did not do the class. They assisted me with the class.
And as of the termination on October 24th of 2016 of your employment, still at no point up till your termination did you do anything but represent that you had been working. Isn't that true?
Will you restate the question, please?
You continued to represent that you had been working. Isn't that true?
What date are we speaking about?
Through the date of your termination.
I was entering beacon time, yes. But I did not have any work to do. I was entering beacon time without working.
And you deny making representations to Melinda Richardson or me that you were working the hours that you were entering in Beacon.
I didn't speak with you, and I don't recall ever talking to Melinda Richardson about that.
Okay. So after the end of your employment, and you're going forward now in November and December of 2016, at some point did Mr. Blitzer say to you, oh, I've known that there was an SBI investigation potentially for a while?
He didn't tell me lengths of time.
When did he tell you?
When the first article came out.
Okay, I understand it came out in the paper and it was obvious there was an SBI investigation. Did Mr. Blitzer say to you that he knew from any certain point before that?
No, he didn't talk to me about it. He just said that there's an investigation when he showed me the paper. And I didn't ask. I didn't want to know.
Well, isn't it true that he represented to you that he had just found out? Is that right?
Overruled to the extent that it's an out-of-court statement. It's not admissible for the truth of what was asserted, but I'm allowing it solely for the purposes of corroborating or impeaching a witness who's previously testified. You may respond.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Rephrase the question.
Yes,
Or
so-
restate it, please.
So isn't it true that he represented to you after this article came out that he was just first learning about an SBI investigation?
No, I do not recall that. Absolutely not.
Do you have any recollection of how he put it to you?
I don't recall. I really don't recall.
And did you ask
Did I ask what?
how long he had known there was an SBI investigation,
No, I did not.
specifically concerning you and your hours?
I did not ask him how long an investigation had been going. I saw what was going on, and I did not ask him how long. No, I didn't want to know, to be honest with you.
Well, Mr. Blitzer has previously testified this phone call was upon advice of counsel. Is that true?
Well, objections overruled. I'll remind the jury that it's the jury's duty to recall prior testimony. And so I'll allow it simply to stage this question.
I'm sorry?
It's been represented that Mr. Blitzer got you to make this phone call to me upon advice of counsel. Is that true?
I don't recall why I ended up making the phone call to you. I don't recall. I did not speak to counsel to call you. No, sir.
All right, and you answered that earlier. You said you did not have an attorney all the way up till 2017.
That's correct.
So I'm trying to cross-examine what the state has put forward about this phone call. Did you make that phone call because Mr. Blitzer had represented to you that was advice of counsel?
No, he didn't tell me because I didn't have counsel, and to my knowledge, he did not have counsel.
All right, I'm getting somewhere. Let me write that down. So as of the phone call in October of 2016, when you made the phone call to me, you did not have counsel and you didn't know he had counsel. Is that
I
true?
never said I didn't know he had counsel. I said, to my knowledge, he had no counsel. I never said that he had counsel.
Okay.
'Cause to my knowledge, he had no counsel.
So at any time in November or December, did you learn that that was different in any way and that he had Mr. Grace?
No, I don't know when he hired Mr. Grace. I really don't. I don't know at what point he hired Mr. Grace.
Well, it is true that by at least December of 2016, you were aware of the SBI investigation as to whether or not the hours were appropriate. Isn't that true? You saw the article.
With the article, yes.
Okay. And as y'all are reading these articles together in the home, do you recall him ever mentioning to you that he had Mr. Grace as counsel?
No, I don't recall that.
And did you discuss the investigation?
As to when it began,
In any event, in November or December of 2016, did you talk about the investigation?
the articles from the paper, yes,
Okay. And were you concerned?
certainly.
Okay. And so at any point up to December of 2016, did Mr. Blitzer say to you, you have nothing to worry about because I've talked to a lawyer?
No, he did
Okay.
not say that to me.
All right, let's go to January of 2017. Again, you have no attorney at that point, is that right?
Correct.
And Mr. Blitzer, again, has not revealed to you that he had counsel either, did he?
No, he didn't speak to me about his counsel.
All right, so when is the first time that you learned that Mr. Grace was representing Craig Blitzer?
I don't recall dates. I really don't. I don't know. I only recall when I needed to get, or when I got it.
All right. And, all right, let's start with that. When did you recall getting Mr. Zatarsky?
I don't know exact dates, but I believe it was in May, sometime of 2017.
All right. You do recall a lawsuit being filed in February where Mr. Blitzer was served, is that right?
I recall a lawsuit. I don't know exactly when it was filed or when it was served or anything, but I know that I was named in it.
All right. And did you talk to a lawyer about the lawsuit after it was served on you?
No, I didn't get an attorney after that was served on me. Not to my knowledge. I don't recall.
Okay. So did you just hand that over to Mr. Blitzer to
Matter
handle?
of fact, I did.
Okay. And you kind of just let him handle the whole thing, is that right?
I did.
Okay. What were you doing in November, December? Did you return to school
November of December
of 2016?
2016. Yes, I was in school.
All right, so you were still in the same BSN program?
Yes, I was.
And you stayed in that program until when?
December of 2017.
All right. And what happened to have you leave it?
I'm sorry.
Good point, I'm sorry. Why did you stop participating in the program as of December of 2017?
I graduated from the school.
Okay. And got your BSN.
That's correct.
And so now you're a nurse,
Correct.
taking your boards and everything?
I have.
Okay. And as a part of the negotiations that Mr. Blitzer and his attorneys did, you were not charged in anything of this, is that correct?
I was not charged. I was just know that I was not charged.
Okay. And in fact, you were promised not to be charged, is that right?
I only know that I was not charged. I wasn't promised anything.
And with regards to having other people do coursework for you for these prerequisite courses, there's been no consequences of that, has there?
No one did coursework for me. They assisted me, and I proved that by having a computer forensic specialist come in and sweep my computer to show that I had over 360 some logins doing my coursework, as well as producing work that I had completed for those classes.
All right.
And I proved that to my school on 2 different occasions.
And which school was that?
South.
South. So do you have any knowledge whether or not the SBI was involved in that?
I have no idea.
So the computer sweep that you just referred to the jury, who was that done by?
A computer forensic specialist that we hired. I
Okay.
did that on my own.
That was a private computer forensic specialist, and you presented that to South, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, as a part of, well, let me ask you this. Mr. Zatarsky gets involved before you talk to the SBI, is that right?
I think, I don't recall, but I think so, yes.
All right. Well, do you remember going and making a statement to the DA's office, at the DA's office, to the SBI?
I do.
Okay. And was Mr. Zatarsky there?
He was.
All right. And do you recall the date of May 12th?
I don't recall that date.
Okay. Do you believe you spoke with the SBI in early May of 2017?
It could have been May. It absolutely could have been May. I don't remember exact dates, but yes, I do remember speaking. It was close to spring, or it was spring. I just don't remember exact dates.
All right. And did the SBI interview you about your background and the events of your employment?
Yes.
All right. And you did relate to them, as you did here today, that you worked with your husband in the law practice, is that right?
Private law practice, yes, and his.
And that you had experience with discovery issues and typing, et cetera. Is that right?
Yes.
When you talked about your husband's election, do you recall saying that you didn't want him to run?
I do.
Okay. And you said you had planned to work in the Rockingham County DA's office, is that right?
After he won his election?
Yes.
Yes.
You also related to them just prior to him taking office, you were in this associate's degree nursing program, is that right?
Correct.
And you indicated that midway through that you stopped taking that class, is that right?
Yes.
All right, when you were hired, Melinda Richardson actually was your person that was training you, is that right?
Correct.
And isn't it true that you told the SBI that during your training, that you recall that you had to do training modules on sexual harassment training, new employee training, insurance setup, beacon training, etc.?
I very well could have stated that.
All right. And do you recall saying that you did your beacon training online?
I don't recall, but I very well could have stated that, but I don't recall.
All right. When you talked about your experience at the Rockingham office, you indicated that you didn't have that Richardson was your supervisor, the AA. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And that your office was all the way at the back. Is that right?
correct.
Okay. And then you go through the description of your husband coming home and saying there was this issue about you working in the Rockingham office. Is that right?
Yes,
And as you related on direct, you indicate that you recall that during the meeting at Elizabeth's Pizza, Wallace Bradsher said he had a family first policy. Is that right?
yes.
Do you remember when that meeting occurred at Elizabeth's Pizza?
No,
Do you recall the transfer of employment had occurred before that?
I don't recall when the transfer of employment was.
All right. Do you recall saying that you noted that you worked for the Caswell County DA's office and you would send your time to John Hoyt Stoltz III? Is that right?
If I stated that, then okay.
Well-
I don't recall. I mean, I know that I did send Jay emails that I had released my time to him, or released my time. I sent the emails to him.
Okay. You do recall that, not just what you said, but you recall that that was the truth, that that's who you sent your time to. Is that right?
I did not, and not for the whole time. I don't know who my time was going to through part of that. I just know that there were times that I would send it to Jay and I would say, I released my time, because he told me that I needed to let them know when I released my time.
All right. And then you recall relaying to them this issue about you needed one class and me talking to a church member, Elisa Montgomery at PCC.
Miss Montgomery, I remember, yes.
Okay. Briefly, to go through that, do you recall telling me that you needed one course and then you had planned to leave the DA's office and pursue nursing?
Yes, that was the full intention to do that, was to finish up that course and begin a nursing career.
All right. And so I want to make it clear. You agree that it was your representation at that meeting that once you got this one course that you wanted to leave employment with the DA's office and start nursing. Is that right?
Yes,
Isn't it true there was never a discussion that you would finish this one course and then go into full-time BSN nursing school and still work, right?
I never was going to go into BSN school until I couldn't get into Elisa's program, Miss Montgomery's program.
All right, so there was never a representation that you were going to be a full-time employee with the DA's office and being in nursing school, right?
No, there was, when we discussed it, you were going to try to help me get into the community college, and I'm sorry, the Piedmont, I think is the name of it, and Miss Montgomery would let me test until I hopefully could pass and get all of her tests taken care of, and then I would complete the course and begin nursing.
Now, it sounds like a simple thing, one course, but isn't it true that at the time that you had told me that you had previously tried to go to Rockingham Community College to try and get that one course and you weren't able to? Is that right?
No, they wanted me to take half of the program over.
All right, that's what I'm trying to clarify for the facts of the case, that it wasn't as simple as taking one course, because there are these policies in the nursing program that they don't want you to just take one course, they want to take a certain percentage of your coursework at their institution, is that right?
That's correct. That's what I was stating, that when you withdraw from nursing school, you have to generally go back and take many courses over.
And since you had dropped out of the Forsyth program, they also had a policy that wouldn't let you come back unless you started over. Is that
That's
right?
correct. I had to reapply because I withdrew.
And isn't it true that once I made contact with Miss Montgomery that I told you,
Objection.
Sustained as to what you said.
I'll rephrase. Isn't it true that you learned that PCC had similar policies, but they were willing to make an exception with regards to you taking testing before you took not just one course, but a few courses to finish
No,
up?
that was not what was told to me. I was going to be able to take the test and then just take the one capstone course and graduate.
Did you go and talk to Miss Montgomery yourself?
I did.
And were you able to take the tests?
I took one test, and it was going to be a series of tests, the equivalent of an NCLEX exam, without having the opportunity to study for one, because, as I said before, everything was fair game. This was a capstone course that I had to complete. Once you reach your capstone course, you had already taken everything within nursing. It had been months since I had taken Nursing 101 and all the other classes, and every school tests differently. So Forsyth tests very differently than Piedmont, and I had nothing to study from. It was just go in blank, sit down, take the test. My understanding was that I would take the test until I passed it, and then they would allow me to take the capstone course.
And that didn't work out. You were not able to successfully pass it, is that right?
I passed the first one, and then the second one, I missed it, and I don't know by how many points, but then she said to me, I said, well, can I refute some of the questions on here and talk about my answers? And she said that I would have to retake that course and any course after that, or like, I don't even remember if it was maybe it was 210 to 11. I can't remember the numbers for the courses, but then I would have to take anything that followed that.
So that didn't work out, is that right?
No.
So do you recall as of about what month and year you are in this chronology of PCC is not an option for you?
It may have been August or September.
Of 2015, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then in terms of you and I having any interaction about nursing, we did not, is that right?
After Elise Montgomery did not work out?
Right,
Correct.
okay.
As far as Elise Montgomery goes, correct.
Okay. But before that, we did have interaction, is that right?
I didn't, you spoke through Craig.
Okay, how about after did we have interaction?
No, I didn't. I think I may have spoken to you one time. I don't recall exactly, but most of my communication with you was through Craig.
Okay. And most of your direct communication was with Jay Stoltz, is that right?
I didn't directly communicate with Jay. I mean, I did when I was at the courthouse, and then I may have sent him a few or emails, not text, but emails.
All
The
right.
ones that you had shown me.
Did you have a chance to review your SBI statement before you testified today?
I haven't looked at it, no.
Did you talk to Mr. Blitzer about your testimony?
Today?
No, prior to today.
This is my testimony today.
I understand. My question is, did you discuss with Mr. Blitzer yesterday his testimony?
He talked to me a second about it.
Okay. Did he share with you what he said and helped you prepare for today? Is that right?
No, he did not.
Okay. So it's just he shared with what he said, or you maybe watched it.
I watched it.
Okay, there we go. Now, the Shockley's attorney was Wayne Hollowell. Is that correct?
I don't know. I think, yes, it was Wayne.
All right. You were asked about a series of conflict cases that you worked on with the SBI. Do you recall that?
A series of what? I'm sorry.
did the SBI ask you about a series of conflict cases that you worked on?
The SBI, I spoke to them about the Shockley case that I worked on.
All right. Did you also relate to them that you worked with Mr. Stoltz and you worked with victims and you did other work?
Correct.
Okay. And isn't it true that you also relayed to the SBI that you thought that Craig Blitzer told Wallace Bradsher that Cindy Blitzer did not have a phone or computer at the office?
That was my understanding, yes.
So again, in terms of that issue that you relayed to the jury, that's something that you believe was related through Mr. Blitzer, is that right?
Through Mr. Blitzer to Mr. Bradsher?
Yes.
Yes.
So isn't it true that you also told the SBI Cindy Blitzer started that around March 1st, 2015, she began to work from home and from the Rockingham County DA's office? Is that right?
I don't recall stating that, but if it's in my statement,
And isn't it true that you told them that around late winter or early spring of 2015, someone moved the Shockley case file into her office at the Rockingham County DA's office?
I don't recall.
You don't recall telling the SBI that you received the Shockley file late winter or early spring of 2015?
I don't recall when I received it exactly. I really don't recall the dates.
And you told the SBI you were given this case without supervision, is that right?
I was given that case without supervision, and I did not have anyone supervising me over the case as far as deadlines or anything like that.
So this email that I showed you earlier indicating Jay Stoltz and you were going to meet, going over uninterrupted time with the Shockley case, you didn't constitute that any type of supervision or interaction?
When I met with Mr. Stoltz in Caswell County, the extent of that was, how's it going with the Shockley case?
And that was it?
Pretty much, as far as what I was reviewing, the videos, the DVDs.
All right. Isn't it true that you told Agent Whitley with the SBI that you were the one that put in your 40 hours a week into the system?
I did on many occasions.
All right. And you also told him that you would send your time to Stoltz. Is that right?
I would let Mr. Stoltz know that I had released my time.
And isn't it true you said that you didn't know why you would send your hours to Stoltz?
Again, many times I had no idea who I was reporting to.
So at one point in the prosecutor's questions, you said that Mr. Blitzer told you that it was okay to keep putting your hours in while you were going to nursing school. You remember saying that?
I remember saying that he was told that I was to concentrate on school, to continue putting my hours in.
And do you remember how and when he told you that?
I remember it was after your DA's conference, but I don't remember the exact date.
All right, so after he came home from Ocracoke, he communicated this to you?
Correct.
All right. Do you recall also telling the SBI that this was a bad time for y'all?
Oh, yes, it was a very stressful time, yes.
You recall relaying that this was a time of financial stress and you and Mr. Blitzer were not getting along. Is that right?
Correct.
In fact, you relayed to him that you were planning to divorce Mr. Blitzer. Isn't that right?
I stated that I wanted to finish school and my intentions were to leave, yes.
And you knew that there was conflict and strife between you and Mr. Blitzer because of a $75,000 or $100,000 loan that had been taken out. Is that right?
No, that was not the cause of our strife. Absolutely not. That was marital funds from a loan that I had taken out.
All right. Mr. Blitzer Did he share with you that he was upset about a loan you took out without his knowledge?
He was not a part of it, and he was not happy about it, but it was within my rights to do it. It was mine as much as his.
Well, it has already come up in this trial, but since you're the one that took it out, can you tell us when that happened?
I don't recall the dates. No, I can't, because I don't recall the date.
Well, isn't it true that sometime in late spring or early summer, Mr. Blitzer had tried to use a card that was canceled?
No, it was not canceled.
Okay. At some point in late spring of 2016, did Mr. Blitzer confront you about just learning about the $75,000 to $100,000 loan?
Somewhere in that timeline, yes.
All right. And so he tells you after the DA's conference it's okay to not work in the hours and get a paycheck. Is that right?
Correct. But he
And
did
he
not tell
said,
me.
I'm sorry, that's right. He said, I said that.
Correct.
That's what he told you, right?
Correct.
And then relying on that, you kept getting that $4,000 a month. Is that right?
Whatever amount it was.
At the same time that y'all were having domestic troubles, you were planning to divorce him and you had this loan out there. Is that right?
First of all, we weren't having domestic troubles. We were having some strain on our marriage, and I had not decided to divorce Mr. Blitzer, no.
Okay.
I needed to get my thoughts together as to what I was going to do.
Okay. So can you tell the jury about this $75,000 or $100,000 loan?
It was from marital funds.
Okay. So was it a loan or you had $100,000 sit in the bank and you took it?
It was a loan that I took against marital funds.
And when did that occur?
I don't recall the date. I don't recall.
Was it in the spring of 2016?
I don't recall when the loan was taken out.
All right. Who was it taken out from?
Whom, as in,
What bank?
a Bank of North Carolina, I think.
Okay. Do you remember if it was even in 2016?
I don't recall the date.
Do you remember arguing with Mr. Blitzer about it?
I remember Mr. Blitzer finding out about it and me telling him what I did.
Okay. Do you remember when that happened in relation to you starting nursing school?
No, I do not. I do not.
After the one time Mr. Blitzer said to you that I told him that you didn't have to work and could keep getting paid, did you ever talk with Ms. Blitzer again about that?
Did I ever speak to Mr. Blitzer? I'm sorry.
Like, did you get that one green light on that one moment and then y'all didn't talk about that anymore?
No, we did. We did. I kept telling him, you need to see if Wallace will give me some work. I do not feel right about this.
Okay. And then you're in the nursing program. Is that right?
That's correct.
And during that time, you said you entered your beacon and sometimes you asked Melinda to do that. Is that right?
Yes.
You did tell the SBI, didn't you, that you took out a small loan first for $35,000. Is that right?
I don't recall telling them that, no.
All right. And isn't it true that you said that the loan amount could have been $100,000?
I took out a loan against marital funds. I don't know. I don't recall telling them that, no.
And then, and this is the point I'm getting to, Cindy Blitzer said that she took out this loan before Craig Blitzer went into the DA's office. Is that right?
I have no idea. I really don't recall when the loan was taken out. I don't recall when I did.
So how did you hide the fact from Mr. Blitzer that you had taken out a $100,000 loan before he went into the DA's office all through 2015 and into the spring of 2016?
There was no hiding it. I took care of all the bills. I paid the bills.
So the bill would come in for that loan and you would pay it and he never saw it? Because
That's correct.
he didn't handle any of the bills?
No, he did not.
So how did he find out?
I don't recall how he actually found out about it. I don't remember exactly.
Do you know Mr. Keeney?
Mark Keeney, yes.
Do you know that he was Mr. Blitzer's right-hand person at the DA's office?
He was his chief assistant DA.
And he would have been second in command in the DA's office, is that right?
I assume he would have been.
All right. Did Mr. Blitzer tell you that he was confiding in Mr. Keeney about this issue?
No,
All right. And you still have no idea when he found out?
the dates, no, I don't.
All right. Isn't it true that you told the SBI that the 4 classes that you had to take before you went to South were algebra, prelude to algebra or college math, psychology, and sociology? Is that right?
Those were some of the classes I had to take, yes.
You also told the SBI that the 7 medical classes were medical terminology, human pathology, public speaking, composition 2, nutrition, statistics, and microbiology class with a laboratory component. Is that right?
Yes,
Prior to coming to work in my office, had you taken any of those courses?
yes, they were with old degrees that
All
I
right.
had.
And you relayed to the SBI about the classes you took at Forsyth, but isn't it true you told the SBI that due to lack of time, you asked Spencer Morrow, an ADA in Rockingham County DA's office, to take the prelude to algebra or college math class?
That was the placement.
All right, but you agree that's what you told the SBI?
Yes,
And you indicated that was an online course, is that right?
the placement exam?
Isn't it true you told the SBI this class was offered through Phoenix University online?
That was the actual class itself, yes.
And isn't it true you also told them Cindy Blitzer also asked Kyle Ambrose to take the algebra class, which was also offered through Phoenix University online?
I asked Cal Ambrose, as I did Spencer, to assist me.
Is that what you told the SBI, that they just assisted like you have this jury today?
Yes, they assisted me, as I proved through my computer forensic sweep that I did my classes.
All right. Isn't it true you said to the SBI that you explained why you felt there was a time crunch because you needed to start classes by April of 2016? Is that right?
Yes. If I were accepted, yes.
Right after you say you have to start classes by April of 2016, isn't it true you said Cindy Blitzer said that her relationship and home life with Craig Blitzer had deteriorated? Is that right?
It was strained.
And you share then you originally didn't want him to run for DA, and once he was in DA, he had to take a cut in pay and was more in the public eye. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you indicate they began to have a bad home life. Is that right?
We had a strained home life, yes.
And isn't it true you told the SBI she felt that this was due to his job, that Craig Blitzer became a person that you did not know? Is that right?
In the public eye.
Okay. And Cindy Blitzer said that her intentions were to get her degree and leave her husband. Is that right?
My intentions were to get my degree and leave and figure out what I needed to do next with my son and myself.
And this is all at the time where you start entering Beacon and not doing any work. Is that right? Based on his representation to you of what I said.
You took the case in March. After March, I got no more work.
All right. You also indicated that Mr. Blitzer was aware of this. Is that right? Of this time period of the deterioration in the home life and the financial strain.
Mr. Blitzer was aware that we were having issues because he was part of this marriage, yes.
Did that ever alleviate in June, July, August, September, these tensions and financial issues between you and Mr. Blitzer?
We were working on things.
You recall telling the SBI that one of the reasons why you asked Mr. Ambrose to take the algebra class was that you had issues in the class?
No. As a matter of fact, when I would ask Mr. Ambrose questions, many times he didn't know the answers any more than I did on some of the stuff.
How well did you know Kyle Ambrose?
Not well at all.
After he helped you with the class, did you know that he then began BLET with your husband?
No, I didn't. No.
So in August of 2016, every day, y'all were still living in the same house, weren't you?
We are.
Every day, Mr. Blitzer would get up and go to BLET with Mr. Ambrose. You didn't know he was in BLET?
I knew that Mr. Ambrose had gone to a BLET class, but I didn't ask Craig about Mr. Ambrose.
Okay. But you knew Mr. Blitzer was going to BLET?
Yes, I knew that.
Okay. You also told the SBI that Craig Blitzer assisted you with a couple of courses as well. Is that right?
He typed some papers for me, he did. He also did I had to do some type of an exam. It was a mock exam on schizophrenia, which I think I may have used him as a help. We created a Batman character together.
Do you also recall relating to the SBI that you believe that in late August or early September of 2016 that you called me?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Isn't it true you told the SBI that in late August or early September of 2016 that you called Wallace Bradsher?
That would have been the call of stating that I needed to resign. But I don't remember the exact dates. I really don't.
So late August, early September,
I don't recall.
think maybe the time's wrong, or?
No, I mean, I don't recall. That could have been the dates. I don't recall.
We indicated the first time you heard of the SBI investigation was when the first news article came out. Is that right?
And that was when I found out about it.
You told the SBI that the reason why you called me was to ask if Cindy Blitzer needed to resign from her job. Is that right?
Correct.
And you put in here that he said he would take it to 12. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And the prosecutors asked you, he said he told you she was working on a special project. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And your response to that was?
I was not working on the special project.
And after that was said, you said nothing. Is that right?
I don't recall what was said after that. I know I was not working on a special project.
Let me ask you this. Do you recall hearing about either cross-training or shared employee or talent sharing? Any term like that?
Mm-mm.
Did you ever talk to Melinda Richardson about talent sharing between the districts or shared employee program?
I don't know what that is.
All right, then you tell the SBI, Cindy Blitzer said that Wallace Bradsher did not come right out and tell Cindy Blitzer, but Cindy Blitzer took it that Wallace Bradsher wanted Cindy Blitzer to say that she was helping on cross-training. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
But I assumed that was this, I didn't know what special project I was supposed to be working on.
And as you were on the stand making your testimony today, you've added to this statement by saying that I told you to continue to work as you had been doing. Is that right?
Told me to continue to keep doing what I was doing, which was entering my time, but I wasn't working. I didn't have a special project and I was not working.
You also gave cell phone numbers to check tolls. Is that right?
To check tolls?
All right, let me strike that. Let me try again. You gave them cell phone numbers, yours, mine, presumably Craig's. Is that right?
I have no idea what I gave them. I don't recall. I haven't looked at the statement.
But I want to make it clear for the jury. This call that you're talking about happened from your landline to my landline. Is that right?
It happened from my landline. I don't recall which number I called.
All right. What was your home phone number at the time?
I don't remember. It changed.
You don't remember your home phone number?
The one that changed? No, I really don't. You're asking me as I'm sitting here on the stand. If you'd like me to look at it, I'll be more than happy to, but I don't recall right off.
Do you have that with you?
My phone number? No, I don't.
In September, October of 2016, your home phone number,
It changed. We went to a different cable connection and it changed. So I don't remember what the old number was. I never called myself that much.
Mr. Bradsher, we're going to break for lunch at this time. We'll resume at 2:30. Ladies and gentlemen, please recall all the instructions I've given you throughout the day. Gather in the deliberation room at 2:30. Leave your notepads in your chairs. Everyone else, please remain seated while the jurors excuse themselves.